Mr. Milton returned home for lunch. His wife Evelyn was not at home. The servants did not know where she was. Mr. Milton sat alone at the table in the garden. He ate a small piece of bread and drank some mineral water. Mr. Milton always ate simple meals because he had problems with his stomach. Then why did he keep a cook among his servants? Because his wife Evelyn liked to invite her friends to big dinner parties and serve them rare and expensive food and wine. Mr. Milton did not enjoy his wife's parties. Evelyn complained that he did not know how to enjoy life. She did a lot of things that he did not like. Evelyn wasted Mr. Milton's money and was mean to him. But he never got angry at his wife. After eating lunch, Mr. Milton took a walk through his house. He didn't stay long in the living room. It reminded him of all the hours he had spent there at his wife's parties. Looking at the formal dining room made him feel even more uncomfortable. He remembered the long dinners where he used to talk to his wife's friends for hours. They never seemed very interested in what he was saying. Mr. Milton walked quickly past the ballroom where his wife danced with her friends. He would go to bed after dinner, but he could hear the music playing until 4 in the morning. Mr. Milton walked into the library. No one in the house ever read any of the books. But Mr. Milton was proud to be wealthy enough to have a perfectly useless room in his house. He went into the dark little room where his wife planned her busy days and evenings. Her writing table was covered with notes and cards from all her friends. Her room's dustbin was full of empty envelopes that had carried invitations of lunches, dinners, parties and movie nights. Mr. Milton saw a letter crushed into a small ball on the floor. He bent to pick it up. Just as he was about to throw it into the dustbin, he noticed that the letter was signed by his business partner, Robert Taylor. But Robert's letter to Mr. Milton's wife was not about business. As Mr. Milton read it, he felt as if his mind was going out of control. He thought he might faint, so he sat down on the chair next to his wife's little writing table. Now the room looked strange.
Who am I? I'll tell you who I am. I am the man who paid for every piece of furniture in this room. If it weren't for me and my money, this room would be empty,
Mr. Milton said loudly. Suddenly, Mr. Milton felt taller. He walked confidently across his wife's room. It belonged to him, didn't it? The house belonged to him too. He felt strong and powerful. He sat at the table and wrote a letter to Evelyn. One of the servants came into the room.
"Did you call, sir?"
he asked.
No, but since you are here, please call for a taxi cab right away,
Mr. Milton replied. The taxi took him to a hotel near his office. A clerk showed him to his room. It smelled like inexpensive soap. The window in the room was open, and loud noises came up from the street. Mr. Milton looked at his watch. 5 o'clock. He wondered if Evelyn had come home yet and read his letter. His head began to ache, and Mr. Milton lay down on the bed. When he woke up, it was dark. He looked at his watch. 9 o'clock. Evelyn must be dressing for dinner. They were supposed to go to Mrs. Antrim's house for dinner tonight. Well, Mr. Milton thought, Evelyn would have to go alone. Maybe she would ask Robert Taylor to take her to the dinner. Mr. Milton realized he was hungry. He left his room and walked down the stairs to the hotel's restaurant. The smell of coffee and fried food filled the air and made him even more hungry. Mr. Milton couldn't eat much of the food that the hotel waiter brought him. He returned to his room, feeling sick. He also felt sweaty and dirty in the clothes he had worn all day. He had never realized how much he loved his home. Someone knocked at his door. Mr. Milton jumped to his feet.
Milton, are you there?
A voice asked. Mr. Milton recognized that voice. It belonged to Jacob Mendes. 20 years ago, Mendes had been very popular with women, especially with other men's wives. As a young man, he had interfered in many marriages. Now, in his old age, Jacob Mendes had become a kind of marriage doctor. He helped husbands and wives save their marriages. Mr. Milton began to feel better as soon as Jacob Mendes walked into his hotel room. 2 men followed him. One was Mr. Milton's rich uncle, Nash Wesley. The other was Dr. Jensen, the minister of St. Stephen's Church, where Mr. Milton and his family prayed every Sunday. Mr. Milton looked at the 3 men and felt very happy that they had come to help him. For the first time in his married life, Mr. Milton felt as important as his wife Evelyn. Jacob Mendes sat on the edge of the bed and lit a cigarette.
Mrs. Milton has asked me to come,
he said. Mr. Milton felt proud of Evelyn. She had done the right thing. Mendes continued.
The poor woman showed me your letter. She's asking you for mercy. She's very sad. We've come here to ask what you want to do.
Mr. Milton now began to feel uncomfortable.
To do? Well, I plan to leave her,
he said. Mendes stopped smoking his cigarette.
Do you want to divorce her?
He asked.
Yes, I want to divorce her,
Mr. Milton replied. Mendes knocked the ashes from his cigarette.
Are you absolutely sure that you want to do this?
He asked. Mr. Milton nodded his head.
I plan to divorce her,
he said loudly. Mr. Milton began to feel very excited. It was the first time he had ever had so many people sitting and listening to him. He told them everything, starting with his discovery of his wife's love affair with his business partner and ending with his complaints about her throwing expensive dinner parties. His uncle looked at his watch. Dr. Jensen started looking out of the hotel window. Mendes stood up.
Do you plan to make fun of yourself then? No one knows what has happened. You are the only one who can reveal the secret. You will make yourself look foolish,
he said. Mr. Milton tried to rise, but he fell back weakly. The 3 men picked up their coats. In another moment they would be gone. When they would leave, Mr. Milton would lose his audience and his belief in himself and his decision.
I won't leave for California until tomorrow,
he whispered. Jacob Mendes smiled.
Tomorrow will be too late. Tomorrow, everyone will know you are here,
he said. Mendes opened the hotel room door. Mr. Wesley and Dr. Jensen walked out of the room. Mendes turned to follow them when he felt Mr. Milton's hand grab his arm.
I will come with you. It's for the children.
Jacob Mendes nodded as Mr. Milton walked out of the room. He closed the door gently.